Emma hated blind dates. She hated the awkward introductions, the forced small talk, the clinking of glasses that filled the silence when two strangers realized they had nothing in common. But tonight, she had promised her best friend, Ava, that she would give it one last try. So there she was, standing outside a cozy restaurant called the Willow Table, tugging nervously at the sleeve of her cream sweater as the November wind played with her hair. Inside, soft jazz drifted through the air, mingled with the scent of roasted garlic and warm bread. Candlelight flickered across tables where couples leaned close, whispering and laughing. Emma felt immediately out of place. She checked her reflection in the glass door one last time, dark curls loosely pinned back, minimal makeup, lips trembling despite the brave smile she practiced. Then she took a breath and stepped inside. A hostess greeted her. "Table for two. Are you meeting someone?" "Yes. A reservation under Daniel," she said, feeling ridiculous as she said the stranger's name. The hostess smiled and led her toward the back of the restaurant, where the lighting was dimmer and the chatter softer. Emma's pulse raced. She spotted him before the hostess even gestured. He was sitting by the window, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a navy sweater and a watch that gleamed under the low light. His hair was dark and slightly tousled, as if he'd run his hand through it one too many times. But what struck her most were his eyes, calm, gray, and yet filled with something distant. When he looked up and met her gaze, he smiled politely and stood. "Emma," she nodded, trying not to blush as he extended his hand. His grip was firm, his voice low and warm. "Nice to meet you. I'm Daniel." "You too," she said, sliding into the seat opposite him. For a few minutes, they exchanged the usual niceties, traffic, weather, how they both hated being late. He was charming in a quiet way, the kind of man who didn't need to talk loudly to hold attention. Still, something about him seemed contained, as if there were walls behind every word. When the waiter came, Daniel ordered a glass of red wine. Emma asked for sparkling water. She didn't drink much, not on first dates, anyway. She needed a clear head to read people. "So," he began once the waiter left. "Ava told me you're an artist." Emma laughed softly. "She's been oversharing, hasn't she?" "Just a little," he said with a faint smile. "But it was enough to make me curious." "What do you paint?" "Mostly portraits. Faces tell stories. I love capturing what words can't say." He tilted his head. "That's beautiful." His compliment felt genuine, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something wistful, like her answer had taken him somewhere else entirely. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you do for a living?" "I run a design firm," he replied, stirring his drink absent-mindedly. "We focus on architecture and interior spaces. It's busy, but rewarding." "That sounds amazing," she said. "Do you work with your family?" Ava said it's a family-run firm. He froze for half a second before replying, "Not anymore." The sudden heaviness in his tone caught her off guard. She opened her mouth to ask more, but his expression made her stop. There was pain there, old, silent pain that didn't belong in a dinner conversation. So she smiled instead and said, "Well, at least you're not one of those guys who brag about crypto investments." That made him laugh, a soft, genuine sound that made her relax. "No," he said, smiling now, "though my accountant keeps trying to convince me." The ice broke. Slowly, the conversation began to flow. They talked about travel, her dream of seeing Florence and his memory of hiking through Norway. They shared embarrassing stories. Emma's college art show disaster where she accidentally glued her own painting to the wall. Daniel's first business pitch where he spilled coffee on a potential investor's suit. And yet, every time Emma felt they were truly connecting, his eyes would cloud again, as if he were retreating into himself. When dessert came, she realized she didn't even know if he was single or divorced, or if this was just some attempt to move on from something deeper. He seemed kind, grounded, but lonely in a way she couldn't name. The waiter placed a slice of cheesecake between them, and Daniel smiled faintly. "Share." "Sure," she said, cutting a small piece. As she lifted her fork, she caught him watching her, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but as if she reminded him of something. His expression softened for a heartbeat before he looked away. "What?" she asked, a nervous laugh escaping her. "Nothing," he said quickly. "You just have a peaceful way about you." "Peaceful," she teased. That's a polite way to say boring. He shook his head. No. Peaceful, like you belong in a world that isn't rushing. The words hit deeper than she expected. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice. He glanced at it, frowned, then excused himself. I'm so sorry, I need to take this. It's important. Of course, she said, forcing a smile. She watched him walk outside, phone pressed to his ear, his shoulders tense against the glow of the streetlight. Minutes passed. 5, 10, then 15. The waiter came to clear plates, and still Daniel hadn't returned. Embarrassment crept in, followed by disappointment. She checked her phone. No message. Maybe he wasn't coming back. When he finally did, the look on his face said it all. Something had shifted. Emma, he said quietly, I'm really sorry. Something came up. I have to go. Oh, she said, trying to hide how her voice cracked. Is everything okay? He hesitated. It's my daughter. He stopped himself. I'm sorry. Her mind blanked. Daughter. He had a daughter. But before she could ask, he pulled out cash, left it on the table, and whispered, thank you for tonight. Then he was gone. Emma sat there for a full minute before she finally stood. Her appetite gone, her hope evaporated. She told herself not to care. But deep down, something stung, because for the first time in a long time, she had wanted it to work. 3 days later, she still couldn't shake it. The memory of his half-smile, the way he'd listened, the quiet sadness in his eyes, it all lingered like a painting unfinished. He bailed on you, Ava said over the phone. Classic single dad move, probably has drama written all over him. I know, Emma said, twirling a pencil between her fingers. Still, he didn't feel like the others. Well, forget him. Focus on your exhibit. You've been waiting for this gallery showcase for months. That part was true. The upcoming weekend was the opening of her first solo art exhibit, Love and Loss, Portraits of Memory. Every piece told a story about someone she'd known, or imagined, caught between heartbreak and healing. She threw herself into work, painting late into the night, losing herself in color and emotion. But even there, his face appeared, those steady eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she was something fragile. She hated that he haunted her brush strokes. The day of the exhibit came faster than she expected. The gallery buzzed with excitement as people wandered through, sipping wine and murmuring compliments. Emma moved from guest to guest, smiling, pretending she wasn't silently searching every face that walked in. The evening light poured through the tall windows, making her paintings glow. She was standing near one of her favorite pieces, a woman standing in the rain with a red umbrella, her reflection blurred in puddles, when a small, clear voice behind her said, "That's her, the girl from Daddy's story." Emma turned. A little girl stood there, maybe 6 years old, wearing a yellow coat and holding a small sketchbook. She had dark hair, big gray eyes, and a gap-toothed grin that was impossible not to smile back at. "Hi there," Emma said, kneeling to her level. "Do you like paintings?" "I love them," the girl said proudly. "My daddy draws too. He says he used to paint before he got sad." Emma blinked. "Before he got sad?" The girl nodded solemnly. "He tells me stories about a girl who helps people find color again. He says she reminds him of Mama and the girl he saw in the cafe." Something twisted in Emma's chest. "The cafe? Uh-huh." The little girl pointed at the woman with the red umbrella. "That's her. Daddy says she always finds the light even in the rain." Before Emma could ask another question, a deep, familiar voice called out gently, "Lily." Emma froze. The girl turned, and a man appeared from across the gallery, tall, dark-haired, in a charcoal coat. He looked up, eyes locking with Emma's, and in that instant, her breath caught. Daniel. For a long, stunned moment, they just stared at each other. His expression shifted from surprise to something softer, almost fragile. He walked closer, voice low. "Emma." Her heart pounded. You have a daughter." He nodded, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I wanted to tell you. I just didn't get the chance," she finished quietly. Lily, oblivious to the tension, tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, it's her, the girl from your story." Daniel's face went pale. He looked at his daughter, then at Emma, and whispered, "Lily, why don't you go look at the paintings in the next room for a minute, okay? Okay, Lily said cheerfully, skipping away. As soon as she was gone, Daniel turned back to Emma, exhaling slowly. You weren't supposed to hear it like that. Emma's pulse raced. Hear what, Daniel? He hesitated, eyes searching hers. Then he said softly, that you're the one from my story. And with those words, the air between them shifted, turning heavy, charged, full of all the questions she didn't know how to ask. Because somehow, without realizing it, she had become part of his story long before she even knew his name. For a long, suspended moment, Emma could only stare at Daniel. The noise of the gallery faded, the murmured voices, the soft classical music, even the hum of the heater, all of it blurred into silence. His words hung between them like the brushstroke that changed the whole painting. You're the one from my story, he had said. Her pulse quickened, her mind racing through every possible meaning. Was it some kind of line? A poetic excuse for ghosting her? But no, his expression wasn't smooth or rehearsed. It was raw, vulnerable. She crossed her arms, partly to keep from trembling. Daniel, I think you'd better explain what that means. He looked down for a moment, as though the floor might give him the right words. Then he gestured toward one of the benches in the corner of the gallery. Can we sit? Emma hesitated but nodded. They sat side by side in the quiet glow of the paintings. For a moment, neither spoke. Daniel's eyes traced the nearest frame, a woman painted in soft watercolors, her face turned toward a gray sky. He spoke finally, his voice low. 2 years ago, I lost my wife, Claire. It was sudden, a car accident. One night she went out to get something for Lily's birthday, and she never came home. Emma's breath caught. Daniel, I'm so sorry. He nodded, jaw tight. For a long time, I couldn't even say her name without feeling like I'd break apart. I stopped painting, stopped designing, stopped living, really. The only thing that kept me going was Lily. She was 4 then, too young to understand, too young to lose her mother. He paused, staring at his hands. At night, she'd ask me for bedtime stories. She'd say, tell me about a happy girl, Daddy. Someone who isn't sad. But I couldn't. I didn't remember what happiness looked like anymore. So one night, I made up a story. About a girl who loved color. She painted everything she saw. The sky, the sea, even people's hearts. She reminded everyone that there's still beauty, even when it rains. Emma's heart thudded painfully. He went on, his eyes distant but warm. I kept telling her about that girl every night. Lily started drawing her too. It became our thing. The girl from Daddy's story. A symbol of light. He glanced at Emma now, eyes full of quiet awe. Then one day, I saw you. She blinked. Me. You were sitting by the cafe window, he said softly. It was raining outside, and you were sketching an old couple sharing an umbrella. You smiled at them like they were a masterpiece. And I thought, God, she looks exactly like her. The girl from my story. The one who sees beauty when everyone else sees gray. Emma's throat tightened. She remembered that day. It had been an ordinary afternoon, the kind where she went to her favorite cafe to escape loneliness with her sketchbook. She had no idea someone had been watching. Daniel's voice grew quieter. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. Not in a romantic way at first. You were just hope. Proof that maybe there were still people who could see the world in color. She looked at him, torn between disbelief and something deeper, something like understanding. So, she said softly, your daughter knows me as the girl from her bedtime stories. He nodded. Yes, I never said your name, of course. But Lily would ask, will the girl from your story ever visit us? I'd tell her maybe someday. Emma took a slow breath. Her anger from that night, his sudden disappearance, had begun to unravel, replaced by something gentler, sadder. And that night at the restaurant, he sighed. My babysitter called right in the middle of dinner. Lily woke up crying, asking for me. She'd had a nightmare about her mom. I panicked. I couldn't leave her like that, not again. I should have explained, but I froze. You looked at me like you thought I was just another guy making excuses. Emma's chest ached. You should have told me the truth. I know, he said quietly. I just didn't want pity. Or to start something when I wasn't sure I was ready. For a moment, silence fell again. Emma looked away, staring at her own artwork on the walls. The faces she'd painted, all of them captured emotion, loss, longing. She realized now how easily Daniel could have stepped right out of one of them. "Daniel," she said finally, "why are you telling me all this now?" He smiled faintly, weary but sincere. "Because you deserve to know why I left. And because when Lily saw your painting online last week, she said, 'Daddy, that's her. That's the girl from your story. I didn't even know you'd be here tonight. Fate, I guess." She shook her head softly. "Fate has a strange sense of humor." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, it does." Across the gallery, Lily's laughter echoed as she twirled in front of a painting of sunflowers. She looked free, unguarded in the way only children could be. Emma watched her, then whispered, "She's beautiful." Daniel's eyes softened instantly. "She's my whole world. She looks like you," Emma said. "Except for the smile. That's pure light." He nodded, voice rough. Her mom's smile. Something about the way he said it made Emma's heart squeeze. She could see now that Daniel wasn't a man running from love, he was a man who had loved so deeply, it nearly destroyed him. Lily ran back toward them then, holding a small sketchbook. "Miss Emma, look what I drew." Emma smiled as Lily thrust the open page toward her. It was a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures under a rainbow. A tall man, a woman with curly hair, and a little girl in the middle holding both their hands. "That's us," Lily said proudly. "You, me, and Daddy." Emma looked up, startled. Daniel looked just as surprised. "Lily," he began gently, "Miss Emma and I don't." But Emma stopped him with a small smile. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it." The child grinned. "Daddy always says good stories end with ice cream. Can we go get some? Please?" Daniel looked at Emma, uncertainty flickering across his face. "You don't have to." "I'd like to," she interrupted softly. His expression warmed, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "Then I guess it's settled." Dash dash dash. The night air was crisp as they walked down the street, Lily skipping ahead, her little boots tapping against the sidewalk. Daniel and Emma followed behind, their hands brushing occasionally but never quite meeting. The city glowed softly around them, streetlights, storefronts, the reflection of passing cars. Emma could feel the tension between them melting, replaced by something quieter and real. "Lily's wonderful," she said after a while. "She is," Daniel agreed. "Too smart for her own good sometimes." Emma smiled. "She reminds me of someone." He looked at her sideways. "Who?" "You," she said simply. "You both see things differently. Like the world is still something you can rebuild." He laughed under his breath. "That's generous. Most days, I'm just trying to keep it from collapsing." They reached a small corner shop glowing with neon signs, Luca's Ice Cream Parlor. Inside, the air smelled of vanilla and chocolate and childhood. Lily pressed her face against the glass display. "Strawberry for me. What about you, Miss Emma?" "I'll have pistachio," she said, smiling. "What about your dad?" Daniel hesitated, eyes flicking to the familiar flavor labeled Claire's Caramel Swirl. He swallowed hard and ordered plain chocolate instead. They sat by the window, Lily happily devouring her scoop, her face smeared with pink ice cream. Emma watched Daniel quietly. The soft light caught his face, outlining the faint tired lines around his eyes. He wasn't perfect. He was still grieving, still rebuilding, but there was something profoundly human about that. "So," she said lightly, "do I get to hear how the story ends?" He raised an eyebrow. "What story?" "The one about the girl from your story. The one who paints light into the rain." He leaned back, pretending to think. "Well, the truth is, I never finished it. I didn't know how." She smiled faintly. "Maybe it doesn't need to end. Maybe it just needs a new chapter." He looked at her for a long time then, something deep and searching in his eyes. "Maybe you're right." Lily yawned suddenly and leaned against Emma's shoulder. "You smell like paint," she mumbled sleepily. Emma laughed softly. "That's because I'm always covered in it." "She likes you," Daniel said quietly. "I like her too," Emma replied. Their eyes met, and this time, neither looked away. Outside, rain began to fall again, tapping gently against the glass. The street shimmered with reflections, soft and golden new. Daniel broke the silence. "You know, when I started telling those stories, I thought I was teaching Lily how to be brave. But maybe I was teaching myself. Emma smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. And maybe you were just waiting for your story to walk back into your life. He studied her for a moment, then said softly, maybe I was. Later, as they left the shop, Lily asleep in her father's arms, Emma walked beside them, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She watched Daniel adjust the little girl's coat with infinite tenderness, his expression calm, steady, content. At the corner, they paused. This was, he began. Unexpected, she finished. He laughed quietly. Yeah, in the best way, she smiled. I'm glad your daughter dragged me into your story. She does that, he said with a wink. She finds the good people. They stood there for a moment longer, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Then Lily stirred and murmured in her sleep, Daddy, did the girl stay? Daniel looked at Emma. She felt her heart twist at the innocent question. She smiled and whispered, tell her yes. He did, and as she watched him walk away down the wet street, Lily's head resting on his shoulder, Emma realized something beautiful. For years, she had painted stories of love and loss, believing she understood both. But tonight, she'd learned that love wasn't always about beginnings or endings, it was about returning. About the people who found you again when you thought your colors had faded. She turned toward the glowing windows of the ice cream shop one last time and whispered to herself. Maybe I was the girl from the story after all.